Hello, my name is Krystina Coles. I'm the author of Moonshadow, and I'll be reading a short story for you today. This one is called The Blood Thief. Okay. The word left her lips in a sigh as she reclaimed her breath, only to hold it captive in her chest when her fingers curled around the little iron handle of the box before her eyes. She turned it, feeling each click resonate through her arm, branch out into the rest of her body. And she grinned as the gears began to rotate slowly within the confines of the glass. This is synapticitran. She straightened her back as she spoke, watching the wheels of the mechanism move on their own. Testing sample number 27 in the Weaver Project. The young woman paced the perimeter of the room in silent waiting, her steps aligning with the rhythm of the hour keeper mounted on the wall, as she twiddled her thumbs just below her chin as she chewed on her lip. No notable ill effects so far. The nausea recorded in the testing of samples 16 through 26 is absent. Slight irritation at injection site, which is to be expected. She ran her fingernails down her arm, the strip of linen wound tightly beneath her elbow rippling at her touch, and she tugged the edge of the bandage down over the marks that tainted her skin. The injury sustained from the previous test's failure is faring better, though still aggravated. The mistakes resulting in said failure have been taken into account and corrected. Synapti winced as she sucked in the air through her teeth and staggered past her desk, the surface barely visible beneath stacks of leather-bound books and tablets fashioned from hammered bronze. She reached out one of her hands when her knees buckled underneath her and cursed when it slipped over the side, sending the sheets of metal tumbling onto the floor. "Tandor, have mercy!" She breathed in frustration and bent down to gather them into her arms. Muscle weakness persists to be a problem. General clumsiness hasn't changed. Her voice fell away. The words fled her mind entirely when she caught sight of one of the tablets in particular. It had cracked in the fall, a fissure running through the letters her father had etched beneath the rivers and forests he'd mapped when she was a child. She had watched him from her perch on his back, traced the mountains and savannas with her fingertips, and listened to the stories of his travels to the new country. Siena, free of kings and curses. What had once been a land of exile had evolved into an independent nation, where magic wasn't something to be feared, but accepted as a gift. It had eluded her, opened up its arms and closed them too soon, but she would find a way. She had to. The cartographer's daughter rose to her feet, and returning the maps to their place on her desk, she shook her hands in an effort to embolden herself. "Here we go." She closed her eyes, whispering, and she stood there in the quiet and let the sound of her anxious heartbeat flood her ears. "You can do it. You can do it." It began as a rush of wind in her stomach, rising and disappearing just as quickly, and for a moment she convinced herself that she had simply imagined it. But it came again, flooding her veins with a tickle of murmuring wings. Starbursts of warmth blossomed underneath her skin and spread like fractals of frost on a glass. It overtook her, seized her blood, and left liquid sunlight in its place. Her eyes flew open, and she lost her breath to the breeze that caught up her hair and sent it whipping around her face. It worked. She spoke over the growing maelstrom as the realization crept in, and she allowed herself to give voice to the joy bubbling up inside her chest. It worked! She nearly screamed it, not even bothering to hide her excitement, and she let her gaze wander from the dozens of lanterns swinging wildly over her head to stare at her hands. But they'd grown pale, white even, as if they held no life at all. No. No, no! The wind slowed into nothingness, fleeing with the light that had drenched the room in amber, and she crumpled against the desk in the darkness and buried her face in her fingers. She started, wiping away the tears that burned in her eyes. "I'll just try again." She resolved and raised her face to appear at the work table in the shadows. The corners of the white cloth dripped over it still swayed, like a specter beckoning her forward, and in the moonlight that spilled in from the window, she could make out the silhouette of her daughter's arm hanging, unmoving, over the side. She would just have to find another one. Thank you.